Welcome back. It's your friend Emma, and I'm delighted to have Jayne Chater with me today. Jayne is a leading executive coach and leadership development specialist who is all about accelerating women's careers. I'm here for that, no matter what stage of life they're in. She's passionate about creating spaces for leaders, in particular women, to self-actualize their lives and careers, to be intentional about creating the path they want, rather than walk the path others think they should. Well known for her work with working mothers and professional women stepping into leadership, Jayne is on a mission to grow the number and diversity of women leading across Aotearoa. She's the author of A Slight Detour, a guide to navigating family and career, and a fierce advocate for working parents as they navigate the demands of our modern world when it comes to the juggle. She also has personal experience because she understands this juggle well with a blended whānau of 9. Well, if you include Frankie the dog and Monty the cat. But kia ora, welcome Jayne. Delighted to have you on. I mean, Jayne and I operate in a similar space. I mean, some would call us competitors, but that's okay because do you know what I say? I mean, I actually stole this term off Kate Billing, but changing the world is a team sport. And
I like it. I like it.
I think that there's a lot of work to do in this space in terms of helping women to show up in the world the way they want to. And so I don't see us as competitors. I mean, I've referred people to Jayne. I'm sure she's done the same for me. And I think we all, we need to collaborate. We need to work together on stuff. So I really was keen to interview Jayne. Jayne has been working in the space for a long time. She has a lived experience of it. She understands the motherhood penalty. And so I want to say kia ora, welcome Jayne, and please share any other intro, background stuff you'd love to share with my listeners.
Stuff and piece and bits. Well, kia ora. Thank you for asking me to come on here. Very excited. What would be useful to share? I'm looking at a beautiful picture of my maunga. So Putuaki is my maunga in Bay of Plenty. Tarawera is my moana. I whānau mai o ki Hong Kong. Engari, tipu aku ki Kawerau. Moved from Hong Kong to Kawerau, big culture shift. I'm one of the many New Zealanders that was not born in New Zealand. Kei te noho o Wairaka, Tamaki Makaurau. So I live in Wairaka, Mount Albert, and live here. And yes, as you say, I've got, was sharing with you a blended family of 9, actually 7, with plus the animals. So 3 gorgeous daughters, can't say teenagers anymore. I think maybe we've got similar age.
Young adults.
3 kids, I think. Yes, young adults. Eldest turned 21 this year, and 2 bonus children, as I call them. So the joys of blended families. So yeah, a little bit about me from a personal front, and totally tautoko and agree with what you talk about in terms of needing to be a team to change the world. And I remember when a few people said, hey, have you heard of Emma? She's doing this great stuff. And I was like, no, send me her information. And you're right, you could go with one of two ways, and like, oh no, someone else is coming into the space, or oh yes, this means it's needed. And I know when we first met, I was like, oh yeah, this is great, this is cool, you're doing some amazing stuff. And absolutely refer lots of people to your part-time powerless, to your amazing podcast, and the great work with returning parents that you do too. So yeah, totally agree with you. Known as a collaborator, which I love. And so, yeah, great to be here collaborating with you today.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad you're here. I think the system wants us to not collaborate. I think we need to wise up to the system we're all living in. And also, I guess the other thing I know is that my career background has been in marketing strategy. And so that's the lens I bring to my business. And with that lens, in order to make a successful business, you have to focus on a problem that people are willing to pay for to solve. And I think growing women in leadership, retaining women at work, that is a problem. And I would say, particularly for parents, working parents, it's a problem that no one's really got a lens on at a large level, like working parents. So I encourage anyone, if you want to join our team, Like if you want to come and put a care app around working parents, and for me that's mums and dads, I say do it. Get curious about these problems because, you know, to coin a strategy phrase, this is really blue ocean. There is not a lot of people doing this work and we need more. There's up to 75% of our workforce are caregivers. You know, how are we supporting caregivers at work? I think that's a big growth area. So there we go. You probably didn't come here for business
Big
advice,
question.
listeners, but you've got some. So,
Love it.
Jayne, when I say the words motherhood penalty, what comes up for you? What are the things that come up for you when you think about those two words, motherhood penalty?
Good question. I think about motherhood penalty, and I almost see the penalty in motherhood still very real, still exists, been around for a long time, and I'll share at some stage. You know, when I first got into this 20 years ago, and I was pregnant, 21 years ago with my eldest, and a whole lot of women were getting pregnant at the same time, and the same questions were coming up. What's going to happen to my career? Am I going to go backwards? What happens if someone comes in and they replace me and they do a better job than me, or they like them, they fit in with the team? And I'm still having those conversations today, you know, 20 years later. And I think that whole penalty piece, I wonder if it's like, it's on both sides. I feel like we are penalised from a parenting perspective, and we can do this on ourselves sometimes, and it's a bit of society. What's the role of a mother? You know, she's the carer, she's the nurturer, she's the one that's there, she's the one that looks after the kids if they're sick. You know, it's historically kind of been what happens. And so if we're not there for that, I almost feel like there's a motherhood penalty in that, oh, they're not, you know, they've got this career now. And I remember in my coffee group, and there was only a couple of us that went back to work, you know, within six months, and we're still quite staunch on advancing our careers, and you have this kind of pang of guilt, or oh gosh, am I really doing this motherhood thing well, and as to what it deserves. On the flip side, you know, we take time out of work, and when I first took parental leave, there was no paid parental leave for self-employed women, so it was navigating how we did that. And I think there was I had to hand over clients, there was a break, and then part of me in the first pregnancy and leave that I had worked kind of continually through. So I didn't quite have a break, but I kind of didn't feel like I was looking after my clients as well. Didn't feel like I was being the best mum I could be. And so I feel like there's this whole penalty on both sides. And a key for me is, and maybe stage and age, is the long-term motherhood penalty. And I know you talk about this, is that the retirement savings, there's, you know, that gap, and that comes from, I know it's slightly changing now, but that time out of the workforce and how that's penalised. We already have a gender pay gap, so we're already earning less than our male counterparts. So we've just got this financial gap that, you know, and I've got 3 young adult daughters, and I'm constantly on them about, it is about the money, and it is about your investing, and it is about retirement, and it's getting onto it now. And, you know, they think I'm a bit crazy at 21 hounding them, but it starts early, eh?
Yeah.
So,
do they listen to you?
Oh, it takes a while.
Oh, God, no, I'm just asking for a friend, because I doubt anyone listens to me and my family, but there we go. Yeah, so, I mean, when I hear you talk that back, it's a penalty on a number of levels. There's obviously the financial penalty, but first of all, this thing that you talked about, which many will resonate with, which is the penalty that you talk to yourself about. Like, you know, like, well, you're a bad mum, or, wow, you know, like, you should really not be going back to work, or da-da-da-da, and then what other mums say in coffee groups. And then on the other side, a penalty to your career is like, handing over work, handing over hard-won accounts to someone else. And, like, it's confusing, because you want to become a parent, you want to be a mum, but you didn't realize there was this, like, I don't know, like, I did not think consciously about your career. I mean, did you think about your career? I mean, how did you think about this? Did it just happen to you? Were you intentional with what was going to happen? If you think back to yourself pre-children?
I've had quite an interesting approach to my career, and a little bit of it's I'll self-disclose something to you, which I haven't done like publicly yet, but I'm one of the many perimenopausal women who was diagnosed with ADHD this year. And so I think and I've always understood that I think quite differently. And so intentional, potentially, a little bit haphazard, yes. Ambitious, whatever that means, yes. Kind of always had a direction of sight of where I was going. And I think that's what got me into leadership development to begin with. I was in my first leadership position in my mid-20s. I moved into a senior leadership position, got kind of poached effectively to another competing organisation, and I was kind of thrown into it. And it was, at the time I thought, God, if I'd known then, as I went through and continued to do my learning and development and training and coaching and leadership development, if I knew then what I knew now, or even 10 years ago, man, that would have been a different transition. So I think it was, I kept learning as I was going. When I had my first, and so I always had this idea of a picture of where I wanted to go and what that looked like. And at the time it was title and recognition. And it was like, that's how you got rewarded. That's how you were seen as an achiever. And I think about your conversations that you have now, and it's like, we're valued on, or we're rewarded on availability or visibility. And actually where we need to be rewarded is value and impact and what actually what we're bringing to the table. So to answer your question a really long way, was I intentional? I think when I had my first baby, I was doing a great contract with Coca-Cola Hamilton at the time, putting coaching on the back of their leadership program for 100 managers, and it was amazing. And then I found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh shit, how am I going to manage working? It's taken a year to get this contract, and now what? What am I going to do? So, and it was at that time that there was some quite senior women, about 7 of them at Coca-Cola, don't drink the water, who were all pregnant at the same time. I literally said that, and they were having the same questions, and so I navigated it by bringing on other coaches and building my team. So kind of going, how do you do this? I'm trying to navigate this, and then with these other women saying, well, I don't know the answers, but are there other women that have done this?
Yeah.
What are your biggest fears? What does success look like for you when you think about 3 to 5 years? Maybe it's just adjusting the time frame, not the ambition as such. So intentional, but I think intentional in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, and like when I hear you talk that back, for me, well, again, and thank you for sharing, perimenopausal and recent ADHD diagnosis, and that's a lot. And, that is a lot. So I want to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
But, hard to be intentional, kind of haphazard. When I hear you talk that back, Jayne, it sounds like a very common experience for so many of my listeners, which is, so many of my clients will say, I'm just surviving at the moment. Thank you, Emma. So do not talk to me about my career. I am just surviving. And I say to them, that is a good strategy, and I support it. But also that you found your people. You know what I mean? Like talk to people that are safe to talk to, and get curious about, what is happening here, and what could we do to get through this system. What I'm curious about is, I don't know if you were partnered at that time, but whether or not you had any conversations with your partner around how will becoming parents impact our careers?
It's such a good question. And, there were times as I was going through my career, and I'll come back to that point, where I had moments, I don't know if you've ever done this, Emma, and I'm in having these amazing conversations with amazing women. I'm like, wow, Jayne, you really need to not practice what you preach, but it's like, oh, let's just listen to this. And there are moments of like, oh, they think I've got it all together, but actually, full self-disclosure, I'm, surviving as well. And so I look back on those times, I think, whew, okay, so if I'm going to, actually create a space for women, I need to create a space for myself. And so when I go back to that time, and I was partnered at the time, and I was married, was being past tense, and you know what, we had a conversation around how the household will change in terms of, what do we need to do to kind of navigate this new kind of little human being. And it was from a practical perspective because we didn't have any family up. So what would we do if the baby was sick? And she came 6 weeks early. I was actually at a workshop with Coca-Cola saying, come on, if I can do star jumps, you can do star jumps. And they said, be careful. And I went into labour 6 weeks early.
That'll learn you.
I didn't realise, my mother had done and never told me. But anyway, so I talked to your parents about it. So we did not have an intentional conversation around kind of what's your role, what's my role, how do we want this to work. It was almost assumed that I would be, that I was it, and my career had to kind of stop, even though I just landed this great contract. My ex-husband was working in an organisation which he's now managing director of and done a great job. But at the time was travelling and was away and was all hours and events and nights. And so it was kind of just an expectation that it was on me. And I almost felt like I was like, no, that's my role. But what I did was I carried on. But my role is also to be a partner for these clients that I've signed up for, to continue providing coaches and support and reporting, and so it was this real navigation of, I had to still do this, but at home I was doing this. So it was just assumed, and I think from that over time, I was a little, I guess, a bit of resentment came in. But
look, I think, and I want to acknowledge that I'm not perfect either. I totally know what you're saying, that it's easier to talk about this with clients, but it's much harder to do it. And I acknowledge all my clients when they take action, because it is so courageous. And it is, though, how you build a life you don't need to escape from. So I love it. But when I listen to you talk that back, Jayne, it's powerful, because that's a very human experience you've had, because, it was just assumed. And we didn't have intentional conversations. And, I don't remember having intentional conversations either. I'm also not married anymore. It's not the reason why my marriage ended, but it's a big tension in it. And that's why I do this work, because I want people to talk about this stuff. Because it's not a beat up on your partner. It's not a beat up on you. We all work in this system that doesn't value caregiving. It is still very gendered when it comes to caregiving. And these assumptions just descend onto our relationship like a slow moving fog from the Hunger Games. And I feel, and you can't even pierce an arrow through it. So, I think if that's happening to you and you're listening to that, just know you're not alone. Talk about it. Get curious. This is work in progress for so many of us, because we're trying to bust down systems, beliefs, childhoods, everything. It's not easy, is it?
No, it sure isn't. And you're right, because it is assumed, and I think back and I think, what could I have driven that? Could he have driven that? What were the assumptions and what were the expectations, from that we put on ourselves? And I remember once, or from others, once walking in the house, and as you get this excited toddler coming at you, and a phone call comes, and it's 5:30, 5:45, and it's a key client, and so I'm just kind of like, answer the phone. Wait, it's kind of like that Zoom call of the guy kicking the
kid out of the room, whatever.
And it's just a moment in time that I always remember. And I think, you didn't need to answer the phone, Jayne, but these expectations that we have in terms of being available. And as you say, the system rewards kind of availability, visibility. It's why, we used to kind of leave our jacket on the back of our chair and kind of sneak out if we needed to. But I remember working in with a professional services firm a number of years ago, and running, I'm talking kind of 10 years ago, running workshops for parents, and then a workshop and a workshop for leaders. And it just happened that the parents were all women and the leaders were all men. And even though we opened it up, but what was fascinating was the men as leaders were saying, we want to be more, what's the opposite of absent? I have a brain.
Present.
Present, thank you. We want to be more present, perimenopause. We want to be more present at home. But, there's these expectations at work, and I was at that point, and I love the work that you do with, everyone coming on board, male allyship, and I think it's so important. And there was a aspiring partner, and he said, I want to lead the way, and I want to, put it out there that how can I do this in a flexible ability to be a partner, but also, be a great dad. And actually he got for the potential pathway to partner and told that he just wasn't dedicated enough. And I just thought, wow, it's such a shame. And it was 10 years ago, but still it was, so even then it was that there was an expectation on both sides. There's dad saying, I want to be present, but I've got to bring the money home and,
Yeah, it's definitely a clunk. It's definitely a clunk when it comes to society's almost changed, but business hasn't, or the system hasn't, and certain professions haven't. And it's a real clunk I see when I work with couples that they've all agreed how they're having these intentional conversations. And then the dad gets to work and they're like, what? 4 days a week? No, you could never do that. Could never work in this role. And it's more than disappointing, eh? It's like, it pisses me off, because actually if that doesn't change, nothing will change for women at work. Nothing. So, yeah, I think we're in violent agreement on that.
We are.
What about, like, in your practice, in your career so far, Jayne, what do you think are some of the things that employers could be doing to reduce the motherhood penalty? Like, I mean, we've talked about making space for dads or changing this culture for dads, but what are the other ways you see mothers being penalised in the workplace, and the role that employers might have?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is not to make assumptions. And as you said before, is get curious. And I think there's so many times where I've had a conversation with a leader or someone in the people team, and it's like, well, we can't ask them because they're on parental leave, and we want to honour that. And sometimes often it comes from a good place, but it's the assumptions we make that they don't want to be involved. They don't want to potentially put their name forward for something. They don't, so I think that there's micro things that we can do as leaders and as people of influence in the people space. And then I think from a macro level, it's how do you continue to measure things, or look at what do you report on? What are the things that you can look at changing, rather than because this is the way we've always done it. So it's how do we keep evolving? How do we bring it to our attention without kind of cool, done and dusted? We can tick that's done for 5 years. Yeah, we've got extra parental leave, or we're accruing leave now. Cool, done, tick. It's like, still doesn't change the gap between the positional kind of gap that we have. So that's one thing, is how do you keep it on your agenda? How do you keep it still topical? How do you keep it where you put your attention is one thing. I often say, I love working with women. And what I would say is it's not just a woman's problem. And I know you say this, it's not all about the woman, it's a system change. And so where can we help leaders? Help with transitions back in, as you were saying. So how do we help leaders and the leadership of organisations to pick some of this stuff up themselves? I can't do it because I'm a senior leader, but how do we support these people? Why can't you? Why can't you look at it? What else is important in your life that perhaps, I don't know, is it grandkids? Is it some triathlon that you're training for? Whatever it might be, illness, which seems to happen around this age. But yeah, so I would say from an organisational perspective, how do you support your leaders? How do you support the focus for the organisation from a top-down conversation? It's got to come from the top. Yeah,
no, I love those. I mean, check your assumptions, right? Actually check in with the person. Yeah, do that. And that's actually such a good thing for organizations and leaders to take, because there are so many assumptions that are made when people come back to work as well. It's like, oh, don't give that project to Emma. She's got 3 children at home. She's got a lot on. And actually, well, I might want that project because projects is how you build your career and get a brand. And don't worry about me managing my 3 children, because also I might have a husband as well. So checking in with people, measuring the right stuff. Don't just think doing a policy is enough, right? Like measuring. And I think getting curious about some of this detail, like how many people have you got working 4 days a week in your business, right? Looking at the genders of those, looking at the ethnicity of all of those people, getting curious about those that are working 4 days. Is it working? Are they quietly seething at night when they're working all night? I always think, don't just let people work 4 days. You actually have to change what you're doing. So I love that. And then leaders, like invest in our leaders. Like, I think that's a really important point, because being a leader is really hard, and often our leaders have jobs to do actually now. And so getting them support is a really good tangible action that just changes outcomes for everyone if we can invest in our leaders. So I love those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you were saying, it's if there are people that are doing 4 days a week, then how are they feeling? And what's the engagement level, and what's their well-being level, and would they recommend the organisation to someone else? And if they are 4 days, are they actually 4 days of work? Or is it, I have a real bugbear, and I think you do as well, around kind of like, yes, you can work. Yes, you can come back and work 4 days. I'm like, are you getting paid for 4 days?
Yeah.
I was like, how have you adjusted the workload to be able to do that?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think in this system, you're better off working 5 days and navigating it, or getting paid for 5 days and navigating it yourself. But then that's kind of a bit of a Band-Aid approach. But
yeah, I mean, I that's just the thing, right? We go on about system change, but we are working in a system that we need to work out how we make it work the best for us. And I mean, I tend to agree. Like, my clients, I've seen people with better work-life integration when they work 5 days as opposed to 4. And I think that as an individual, you just have to work that out for yourself. And look, I know it's hard. I worked 4 days for a lot, and I got 80% of my salary for a lot of my career, because I told myself that was the only way I could do it. Because you don't have a lot of confidence. Like, it's really quite hard to negotiate a full-time with a bit of flexibility in there when you're feeling kind of low and like you're worth nothing anyway. So I think this stuff is really hard. You have to be kind to yourself. Just speaking of that, like if we think about mothers, what are they in control of, or what can they do to really reduce the motherhood penalty they might experience? Like, in your experience, in your practice, what are some of the things that mothers have control over to reduce this penalty?
One big part that I see is that what they can control is to your point, is that whole mindset piece around how lucky I am. And I know that comes up a lot. Oh, I'm really lucky because they're offering me, part-time. It's less money, but, and so I see, I kind of look at it and I think about, how I support women and accelerate their career, and at whatever stage they might be. Are they returning? Are they taking a detour out? And I think often we kind of come out and think we've got to go down before we can come back in, but actually think of it as you might come off, but actually how do you come back on, if not up, because if we can think about the experiences we've learned, if we can think about those transferable skills, if we can think about, hey, the great thing about AI now is we can go, what are some of the skills that I've learned, and and these are the things I might do each day, and start to kind of believe in our value. But the first and foremost, and I think I said it before, is don't feel like you've got to do it alone. I did for so long. I was like, I should be able to do my business and do this, and everyone else seems to be doing it really well, until I started working in this space, and I was like, man, women are really struggling. And how do we connect women together? How do we connect leaders together to see that actually you think she's doing a wonderful job over here. She is breaking, before she breaks or before they break. It's how do you spot that? So I think what you can control is being really intentional around the people that you do have around you. Is also asking for what you do want, but finding it a way that you can ask. And I say be ambitious or think big, because I think, we're still in this kind of expectations of what's out there. And look, it's a really tough market at the moment, that we almost feel like we're lucky to get what we can, especially if we've been out of the workforce for a bit. So I would say stay connected with people, just really be intentional with your network, give as well as get. Think of it like a KiwiSaver scheme, where if you keep kind of putting increments and it'll pay dividends at some point. And that might be in working hours as well. It's, we're so head down, bum up to getting the mahi done, the work done, that we don't place importance on those connections or those relationships, or, hey, tell me what you're doing. How does our work connect with that? So, yeah, that's one thing that I would say. A couple of things.
Well, you've said a lot of things there.
Wow.
I mean, I think you've talked mindset. You've talked mindset. Yeah, you've talked connections. You've talked asking for what you need. And I think, the mindset one is really interesting to me, because that's everything. Like, whether, I could go on like on many Instagram memes of, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And I think, though, that, mindset can be really hard to cultivate. Like, when you're sleep deprived and you're exhausted and your boss doesn't understand and you're about to ring them up and tell them you can't come in for the 4th day in a row because your kid's got strep throat. What advice would you give someone who's going through tough times as a working mum to just keep going? What would you say to them?
Yeah. We do, often women, we do two things. One, we apologise. And two, we over-explain. We give way too much information that's needed. And the two go hand in hand, I think, sometimes. So first of all, it's a little bit around that asking for what we want, or explaining, but rather than, I'm so sorry, I'm sick again, I'm letting down the team, we might be thinking it. That the fact is, I'm going to be in tomorrow or next week, or this week's out. It's carnage here. We've got sickness all over the show, and I'll be in next week, or I'll keep you posted, so it's end of story, zip it. We tend to kind of give way too much information. Hey, I'm going to be late for that meeting. I can't make it. I've got to drop so-and-so off, and just juggling, and it's too much. This is like, stop. You know what? I can't do that meeting. Or if you don't like to say I can't do it, hey, let's make it 10. I can guarantee to be there by 10. Or, so just changing our language and not apologising. I think we apologise way too much.
Yeah. Well, I agree with both those points.
Yeah.
I'm on a mission to stop women saying sorry. So that's my number one mission, because I say sorry when someone else's trolley hits mine in the supermarket.
Yes, right. Why do we do that? I do this. Oh, I'm so sorry. You bumped into me. I'm so sorry.
I had a client who said to me, she came back after a session, she said to me, Emma, I noticed that I said sorry to the wall when I bumped into it. And I'm like, I hear ya.
That's when I knew.
I hear ya. And I think so not apologising can really help your mindset. And look, you can just sort of simply say, hey, thanks for your patience. I got tied up with technology. I'm here now. Or you can simply say nothing as well. And then not over-explaining. I think both those things, the person that will benefit will be you. Because you
100%.
will change your mindset. And I think that the over-explaining, like I just call it full stop silence. I can't come to the 5 p.m.
I like that.
I can't come to the 5 p.m. I wish I could. I can't.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not going to lie that that's not incredibly uncomfortable. And we have all sorts of thoughts in our heads of, I'm going to get fired, I won't be a team player, da-da-da-da. But let me ask you, whose comfort is more important, yours or theirs? We have to prioritise ourselves, and we have to build a life like that. Otherwise, anything else is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then if we've got kind of people on our team that are in that meeting, they can perhaps advocate for us if something comes up. It's like, actually, do you know what? Emma would be great on that. She's
Totally.
the right person to be on that one. Or could we do this at another time? There's too many of us that can't do this time, or whatever it might
Totally.
be. So
Yeah, and I love the way you position sickness, because it's a very relevant thing for parents. And when I heard you talk that, for me, what I loved about it was you externalized it. So I think if we can try and avoid talking about, I'm so shit and I'm sick again and my children are sick again. It's like, we've got sickness. We've got sickness in this house. It's strep throat for everybody. That is a much better way of talking about it, because when we talk about stuff that's to do with, it makes it become our fault, whereas sickness is completely uncontrollable, and unpredictable. And, you know, I think we develop so much guilt around sickness, and we really need to get a plan together on this, because it's not your fault. We work in a system that doesn't value caregiving, and we really need to take control of that.
yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, you also get to a stage of, you know, I've talked a little bit before about the sandwich generation, as you say, I've been spouting off out there in the socials world, but it's with either little kids, or we might be at a stage of, you know, I think I was on my own, and one of my kids was moving schools, was having a really hard time. You know, my dad was really sick, so I was up and down the countryside, and you're exhausted, and so I was like, how much information do I share with people? But how do I, one of the other things I say to people that I work with is know your no, know your yes, and stick with it. Because I'm a self-proclaimed, kind of confessed, if that's the right word, people pleaser. And I understand it a bit now with the way my brain works and ADHD, social rejection, all the other things that come with it. I was constantly yes to people, and then I'd think, oh shit, I can't do that. I can't deliver that on time, so something's going to have to give. Family, sleep. So just knowing your no and knowing your yes and sticking with it.
I love that. Knowing your no, knowing your yes. I can't remember who it was said, whether it was Anne Lamott or Liz Gilbert, but she says, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. And sometimes I say that, I'm like, is that a hell yes?
Yeah.
Is that a, you know, something else socially I want to do, or whatever it might be? It's like, what am I doing it for? But yeah.
What I always say to people, it's like when you're in a changing room and you've put a dress on and you're looking in the mirror, and if you are saying to yourself, do I like it? Then it's a no.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
Like if you put a dress on, you go, yes, I look fine in this dress. That's a yes. Decisions have got to be the same. If it's not an automatic yes, it's probably a no. Probably a no. So you can protect your time, you can protect your energy by honouring that.
Absolutely.
Finally, Jayne, there's lots of numbers when it comes to the motherhood penalty, but the Grattan Institute in Australia say that over 10 years, a mother's salary can get penalised by up to 55%. And that also affects your retirement savings as well, and the pay gap. You know, if you had a magic wand to wave, and it can be a really true magic wand, right? So what do you reckon's the biggest lever you could pull that would mean that mothers are not being penalised in their salary, retirement savings and career for simply becoming a mother? What would you use your wand for?
I would, on one hand, I would have like unlimited free resources like chefs, nannies, taxi services, laundry pickups, cleaners. Like, how good would that be? Like unlimited resources.
I'd have another baby
you know,
if that was that system you were
100%.
creating for me. Thank you very much.
So on the personal side, I'd do that. You know, from the professional side and work, right? If I could wave a magic wand, it would be, and maybe this is where the future of work's going, but it would be looking at roles and almost going, okay, so here's being way more. Here's a role that is based on this project, and it's roughly these hours, and it's this. Here's a role that's roughly, so we would be able to, and it was normalized for all of us. So it was like you could go, yep, I'm happy I want to earn this and I want to do this, and so that's what I'm going to do. And it's a 40-hour a week. It's pumping this out. I want to be able to do, maybe there's others that earn this, and so I think it's just creating a job market where all things were equal and what was measured is value and impact versus hours and visibility. So and I think and from a, I don't know, from when you take time off, and I would love to wave a magic wand and go, all parents, if you have two of you, you get 6 months and you get 6 months full paid leave. And that would start to change.
Yeah, totally. So Jayne's used her magic wand 3 times. So that must suggest she's a bit of a rule breaker. I love those suggestions, like endless cooks, cleaners, gardeners, night nannies, whatever we come to, cooks, all that kind of stuff. Then reimagining work so that we're valuing the value and the outcomes, not the hours and the visibility. The third one which was excellent, Jayne, which is 6 months paid parental leave for both parents. But I love all those 3 of those suggestions, and all of them cut to the heart of this like system that doesn't value caregiving, that they change as it's kind of, it's designing a system for all caregivers, whether that's elderly parents, children, pets, sickness, rather than being surprised by all these requirements we seem to have on our lives. Like, this is what the system is surprised by: sickness. The system is surprised by the amount of work it requires to keep a family operational, and what if we could design a system that expects this stuff, So I love all of those. Thank you so much, Jayne. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing a little of your story. Thank you for sharing the decades of experience you have working in this space of what both employers and women can do to take control. I know so many of my listeners will have got gold gems from this interview. Thank you for your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Loved it. So good.
Awesome. Onwards and upwards, people. This podcast was funded by Works for Everyone, a business that is dedicated to supporting working parents and to smashing the motherhood penalty. If this is also your jam, let's stay connected. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for us, Works for Everyone. And if you want more information on how we help businesses put a care wrap around their employees, check us out on worksforeveryone.co.nz. Or if none of these work for you, in the weekends you can find me, Emma McLean, the founder of Works for Everyone, in the queue at Pack and Save Royal Oak or Kmart St Luke's. Onwards!